We are on home lesson number 4, and we are looking at adding and subtracting rational expressions. I'm going to start off actually with a few simple examples. Just like you're adding and subtracting fractions that are just strictly numerical, it's important to start off by getting a common denominator. If you already have a common denominator, then you can go ahead and combine the top and keep the denominator for the bottom. Notice that for a, there already is a common denominator, it's b squared. On the top, I can add 3b plus 5b, and this would give me 8b over b squared. Don't forget your rules for simplifying. This is really, if you wrote it out as simple as possible, b times b on the bottom, I could cancel out a b from the top and the bottom. So the most simplest version is 8 over b. Let's look at b. We already have a common denominator. It's x minus 4. If I were to add the top, that would be x squared minus 8x plus 2x plus 8. I can combine like terms and get x squared minus 6x plus 8 over x minus 4. Really super important that you are keeping an eye on whether or not you have something on top that can be simplified further by factoring. I'm looking for two numbers I can add to get negative 6 or multiply to get 8. I think negative 4 and negative 2. Negative 4 and negative 2 can add to give me negative 6, and negative 4 times negative 2 can give me 8. So I can change this to factors of x minus 4, x minus 2. This is over x minus 4. So I am now able to cancel out my denominator with one of the factors on top, and the most simplified version is x minus 2. Now if we look at the bottom, again, we have a common denominator already. This is the difference of two squares, so we'll talk about factoring that in a moment. On top, 2m, 4 plus 2 is 6. Both of the top and the bottom can be factored further. When you have the difference of two squares, remember that's something squared minus something squared. M squared, 3 times 3 is 9. So I can factor the bottom by saying m plus 3, m minus 3. The top, I can factor out a 2. This allows me to be able to cancel out an m plus 3 on the top and the bottom. My most simplified version is 2 over m minus 3. Looking at the next page of notes, what happens if you have a case where you don't have a common denominator? This is very much like doing it with numbers. Again, I know I keep saying that, but I have a denominator of c and I have a denominator of 3c. If I could change the c so that it is 3c, then we'd have a common denominator. I can do that. I pretty much can do anything I want as long as I do it to the top and the bottom of the fraction. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to multiply the top and the bottom of this fraction by 3. So that would give me 9 over 3c minus 4 over 3c. 9 minus 4 is 5. 3c comes along on the bottom. That's an option. So let's look at something a little bit more complicated. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite the fractions on here as factored as I can. So on the bottom, I have something squared minus something squared. That'll give me x plus 2, x minus 2. On the top, I can factor out an x. Okay, so the top part of this may or may not be something that we would want to do that with. I'm actually going to go back and just rewrite the top the way that it was. I'm realizing now that let's undo. There we go. I'm just going to leave it the way it was. x squared plus 6x. Okay, so if I'm looking at the bottom, I could have common denominators if I multiply the top and bottom of my fraction on the left by x minus 2. So I'm going to do x minus 2 over x minus 2. This will allow me to have that common denominator, which is x plus 2 times x minus 2. If I were to combine the tops, there's my first one. Here's my second one. I'm going to simplify my top here. This, if I were to distribute, is x squared minus 2x. So now this gives me on top 2x squared plus 4x. I combined my x squareds and I combined my x's, and this goes over x plus 2, x minus 2. I can factor the top because I can pull out a 2x. And this will allow me to be able to cancel at least one factor from the top and the bottom, which is x plus 2. This is my end result. The name of the game is really factoring here. Let's try some more. What happens here? We have x plus 2 and x plus 4. My common denominator is going to be x plus 2 times x plus 4. In order to change these, what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to multiply the top and the bottom on the right by x plus 4 over x plus 4, and on, oh, that was left, and then on the right, x plus 2 over x plus 2. Now that I have a common denominator, my common denominator is x plus 2 times x plus 4. The top is 2 times x plus 4 plus 6 times x plus 2. That is from here and from here. I'm going to simplify the top. 2x plus 8 plus 6x plus 12 over our x plus 2, x plus 4. Combine like terms, I have 8x plus 20. And then I can factor the top by pulling out a 4. And it looks like even after I factor the top, you really can't cancel anything out, and sometimes that's a thing. So that's okay. This is the most simplified version, and that's a thing that happens sometimes, and that's great. You can have that. If you had left it like this, that would have been okay too. Looking at the bottom of G, I'm noticing that these factors are not equal, but they're a lot alike. I can change 12 minus a so that it's a minus 12. I want to change this to a minus 12. And the only way I can do that really is if I multiply this by negative 1. If I multiply it by negative 1, that would make a positive and 12 negative, and I could switch that around. Remember, I can do anything I want as long as I do it to the top and the bottom. So I'm going to multiply the top and the bottom of that second fraction by negative 1. What does that let me do? It allows me to change the 12 and the a and make it a minus 12. And then I'm able to have a common denominator and combine the top. This is going to be my end result. It is possible sometimes to simplify problems that have more than 2 terms. I'm noticing that the third fraction on here, the third term, you can use the difference of squares to simplify that and factor it further, x plus 1, x minus 1, which actually is going to be my common denominator. In order for my second fraction to have the common denominator, I have to multiply the top and the bottom by x plus 1. And in order for the common denominator to be happening with a second term, I have to multiply the top and the bottom by x minus 1. That'll allow me to rewrite everything with my common denominator. I have at top 4x times x plus 1 minus 2 times x minus 1 minus 4. From here, I'm going to go ahead and simplify the top by multiplying out and distributing and multiplying out. So I would have like 4x squared plus 4x. I would have negative 2x plus 2, and then I would have my negative 4. If I were to combine all of these together, that would give me 4x squared plus 2x minus 2, all over my common denominator, which is x plus 1, x minus 1. In order to see if we can go any further with this, we're going to have to factor the top. Remember that when you're factoring a trinomial that has a leading coefficient that's bigger than 1, I have to multiply the very first number and the very last number, and then I have to use factored pairs to see if I can manipulate anything to get a 2. I have 1 times 8, and I have 2 times 4. I can manipulate these so I could add them to get 2 if I have the negative 2. So you may or may not remember us factoring by grouping. But now that I know I have this group right here, I'm going to rewrite this as 4x squared minus 2x. Actually, I'm going to put the 4x first. Let me go back here. Plus 4x minus 2x minus 2. Notice that what I did is I broke this down as the sum of two numbers that are equal. Now I can factor by grouping. I'm going to break these two off. I'm going to pull out a 4x over here, x plus 1. And then I know I want an x plus 1 here also, so I have to figure out how I can put something in front of this to make it equal to what's above here. If I put a negative 2 in front of this and I distribute, then that would be great. The reason I'm doing this, though, is because I want to pull out my x plus 1, and then my other factor is 4x minus 2. That being said, I will have x plus 1 times 4x plus minus 2 over my original denominator, which is x plus 1, x minus 1, and I can go ahead and cancel these. Now, 4x minus 2, that can be simplified further. Let's just try this real quick and see if we can factor 4x minus 2. I can pull out a 2. That would give me 2x minus 1. Is that going to help us? No. So I'm just checking to make sure. So my final answer is 4x minus 2 over x minus 1. Lots of stuff. Last example, I'm going to go ahead and factor the top and the bottom. X minus x plus 2, x minus 1. There's the bottom. Then I have x minus 4, x minus 1. Negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4, and negative 4 plus negative 1 is negative 5. And so I can see these both share an x minus 1. They don't share the other two factors. So what I'm going to have to do is I need to multiply the left-hand side, top and bottom, by that, and the right-hand side, top and bottom, by that. And the end result here is going to be that I have a common denominator that looks like this. So let's multiply the top and the bottom by x minus 4 on this one, and the top and the bottom by x plus 2 on this one. So on the top of my new fraction, I'm going to have x times x minus 4 minus 2 times x plus 2. From here, we're going to simplify. I'm going to I have to distribute x squared minus 4x, distribute negative 2x minus 4, so that when I go over here, I can combine like terms and get x squared minus 6x minus 4 over our original denominator. I'm looking at this to see if I can make this, if I can go ahead and try to factor that further. there are no two numbers that I can multiply to get -4, but add to get -6. So this is actually going to be the most simplified version of the answer. We couldn't factor it further, and that's okay if you have to leave it like that.